Okay, well, we're back, and I am really excited to see you guys out there that are watching. I hope things are going good for you. I know we're in kind of a deep freeze here in Oklahoma, and I'm sure that South Dakota is even better. But anyway, thank you and welcome back. We're going to be wrapping up some discussions that we're having about Jehovah's Witnesses. And my name is Greg Fisher, and I don't know what to say about myself other than I'm retired from um, clergy ministry, pastoral duties. So I'm just here in my little office and writing papers about various things that are of interest. And with me is my co host, Linda Morse, who's also a student.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Fourth Watch. We have a website or not a website, we have Facebook channel. We have two YouTube channels. We have Greg Fisher and we have mine, which is number 4, Right Stuff. And those are up on here. And we just thank you for joining us. We have been talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. Today, we're talking about Jehovah's Witnesses and how to witness to them. But I also forgot to mention to like and subscribe to our channel. So throw that in there, like and subscribe, please. But anyway, so as we're talking about how to witness to Jehovah's Witnesses, we thought that probably one of the best things to do would be to talk about some of the questions that have come up on our two channels.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to start with one, which is if Jesus is payment for our sin, who is he paid to and who's holding the ransom?
Yeah, that's a good question, and theologians have been debating that. It's obvious that Jesus is a ransom for sin because the scripture tells us that, and that he bought us out of the slave market of sin. The scripture tells us that as well. So, who is the ransom paid to? That's an area of contention with theologians. Was it paid to Satan? Was it paid to God? Who is holding the ransom? And one of the things uh, that I think about when I'm thinking about who's holding the ransom is that in a way that we don't fully understand, there is written into our universe, into our current being, a concept that is that um, unless there's this with the shedding of blood, the blood is a remission for sin, and the book of Hebrews talks about that, um, and uh, that idea. For instance, you could look at the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe,
Mm-hmm.
and when Aslan, the lion, is going to be sacrificed, they C.S. Lewis talks about this deep magic that is there, and that's that same idea that it's built into the universe, and
Mm-hmm.
that Christ, by shedding his blood, is covering the sins of the world. And quite frankly, I believe in an unlimited atonement. So, so I can say that it's covering the sins of the world. And so that is a technical term. We call it a propitiation, a
Mm-hmm.
covering for sin. And the Bible also talks about Christ as being a propitiation. What is a propitiation? It's a gift given to turn away someone's anger. So, who is angry? God is angry.
Mm-hmm. He didn't create us for sin. He created us for relationship.
Yeah, and chapter 1 starts out with that statement. Now the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against sin and unrighteousness.
Mhm.
And he didn't say the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against sinners. His wrath is revealed from heaven against sin and unrighteousness.
And that is throughout the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Yes.
So, another question that we had on here was, I'm just going to read the question. What is hell? Who go there? Will everyone that go there ever come back out of hell? That's a big
Well, let's
question.
start with, will anyone go there come back out of hell? Um, the answer the answer to that is no, as far as the scriptures are concerned. Hell is like the final stop. It's the final destination, and the train isn't coming back the other way. Um,
So who will
C.S.
go there?
Lewis C.S.
Okay.
Lewis has an interesting book called The Great Divorce, and he is talking about heaven and hell, and hell exists in his this is a allegory that an allegorical way of talking about hell and heaven.
Mhm.
And hell uh, exists as um, really kind of um, how am I going to say it? Kind of a place with no substance, and people are getting on a bus, and the bus takes them to the edge of heaven where they can get out and look and see heaven. And when they get out to look, they are just like some kind of smoky vapor, and walking on the grass hurts their feet because there's so much substance there. So, can people move from hell to heaven? I don't know about that. But it was an interesting story that C.S. Lewis constructed
Mhm.
to look at the differences there. Now, is hell eternal punishment? Well, Christians have been debating that for a long time. Do I think that hell is eternal punishment? Yes, I'm convinced of that. And but there are other good Christians that I know that are debating hell and think of it as a final destination in which people are eventually annihilated. They're punished and then annihilated. Um, and then there's other good Christians that are talking about um, hell, and and possibly there's an ultimate reconciliation where everything is reconciled and people are reconciled from hell.
Mhm.
Those Christians have debated that kind of stuff. One thing, and there's several Christian groups that believe in um, when you die, you're no longer conscious until the resurrection, and there will be a resurrection of the dead, and it will be there's first a resurrection of the righteous, and then a resurrection of everyone else, and a judgment. So on hell, uh, we can we could take various positions on hell, and still be within Orthodox Christianity.
Well,
Thing we can't.
basically, it's part of the problem here that we're trying to define a God that this is this big in a sentence, and in a mind that's like just a minuscule speck compared with who God is.
Yes, the you know the the essence of God, the all that God has,
Mhm.
the full, we could say the fullness of God is so great that some of our little arguments back and forth are very, very puny.
Right.
And that's one of the problems that I have with in our discussion with Jehovah's Witnesses is that um, they have a very extremely limited, constrained understanding of all that God is accomplishing. And it focuses down to just a few questions and a few issues, and then misses some of the major points that of what God is doing.
So a lot of times we're asking the wrong question. And you're not going to get the right answer if you can't ask the right question. Um, I think that on this next question that we had, and there's so much tied up in this. Okay, first off, the watchtower.
Who?
A lot of times, with the watchtower, first off, I've got to say this. Okay, the New World Translation condemns false prophesying and says that it's proof that God is not speaking through that prophet. So, but the watchtower itself has put some stuff out there.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Hang on a second. I lost something on my screen that I wanted to get back. I don't know where it went.
Well, okay, let me hit.
Okay, here we are.
Okay,
I
you got
got
it.
it. Yeah,
Okay.
I got it now. I got it now. Yeah, the Watchtower wants to present itself as a prophet, a prophetic organization that is speaking for God. And here's the thing that is so, I think, uh, insidious about the Jehovah's Witnesses is that first, they're your first contact with them, they're scaring you. Let's say like this: they're scaring the hell out of you. They're scaring you with this Armageddon, with the second coming, with the this could be any moment. Are you ready? Kind of thing. And so you're coming in, they're bringing you in fear, not in faith, but
Right.
in fear. You're coming for fear of your souls being lost, and then you are kept in fear of losing relationships with your family and friends and things, that because once you begin to question the constraints of the Jehovah's Witnesses, then you can be disfellowshipped and shunned.
Well,
And so
actually,
the whole thing is based on fear.
aren't you? And you fear losing your salvation.
Hmm.
If I recall,
Yes,
that was one of the points that you can only through good works and sincere effort can you actually be saved.
that's right. And that's the problem. That's the problem with last week. We had the video clip of Ray Comfort interviewing a committed Jehovah's Witness, and asking, if I'm going to die in 3 minutes, what can you tell me? How I've done all this wickedness, how can I be ready to meet God? There's no answer, because the answer is you have to join God's organization and then follow all of the commands and the rules and the regulations that they're putting down.
Can I
And they
clarify? That's the Jehovah's Witness answer.
right.
And the
And
Christian answer is
you can't
different.
do that in 3 minutes.
No, for a Christian, and I think you and I have both been in the position where we were with someone who was dying.
Yes, I have been with people who died as I was standing there.
We have also, my husband and I, and the thing is, when a person is dying, in fact, one of them, I know was hanging on because she was praying for her family. She was just so afraid to let go of that, and I'm going, we got this. We knew how to pray for your family. Um, but the main thing is that we have always told them, um, okay, do you believe Jesus? Have you repented of your sins? Have you reconciled with him? You got 3 minutes. Jesus, forgive my sins. Welcome me into my kingdom. Just like the thief on the cross, um, it doesn't take 20 years of proving your faith. The thief on the cross was with Jesus moments later.
Um, you know, one of our pastor at First Presbyterian Church in Tulsa um, um, was had a great illustration, a great kind of a picture
Mm-hmm.
that he talked about the thief on the cross appearing in paradise or heaven and being asked why are you here, how did you get here, how
Uh-huh.
do you deserve to be here, and the thief on the cross said, the man on the middle cross invited me.
Yeah.
And
And
that man on the middle cross is inviting you as well.
Jesus tells the parable about the workers and those who labored all day and those who came in at the last hour and received the same wages.
Yes. And then the people who labored all day complaining.
Yes. I think that what we know of hell, we wouldn't wish that on our worst enemy. And so I think that in my own heart, I'll be really grateful to see some of those people who come at the last minute. Um, so we're talking kind of about prophecy here. We know that the Watchtower has it's put out some false information. In fact, there was one thing. This is a trivial thing. I don't want to go down too many rabbit trails, but one thing was about beards. Okay, God decided beards. God decided beards is okay. You know what? God is the same yesterday, today, and always, and He doesn't have to figure this out. He's got this together. If there's any question, it's because we got it wrong.
Yeah, and obviously that was something that was wrong, and they had to backpedal on it. And
Mhm.
then all the men started growing beards.
So in
I don't know if any
Deuteronomy,
of the women did, but anyway, all the men, many of the men started growing beards, and even at the highest level of leadership, uh, the governing body, um, they start growing beards.
so
I've had mine for a long time.
it says, in Deuteronomy 18, the prophet who presumes to speak in my name, a word I've not commanded him to speak, or speaks in the names of other gods, then he must die. So how, again, I want to go back to that. How come that doesn't apply to the New World Translation and to the Watchtower? If we hold someone else to that standard, are we not also held to that standard?
Well, I think that we are, and there's just a long list of prophecies that have been made in the past by the Jehovah's Witness leadership,
Mm-hmm.
proclaiming that they're speaking for God. Um, but for example, Judge Rutherford, that was their second leader. Judge Rutherford is the leader that turned the Jehovah's Witnesses into a theocracy, and established this top down. The governing body was speaking for God, and he predicted that in 1918 God would destroy all the churches and denominations just wholesale. They would all be destroyed. But of course, we know that didn't happen.
Oh,
And
well, they've predicted Jesus coming several times.
yes, well, there is the 1914 coming. There was, I think, 1938. There was also a prophecy that um, 1925 uh, would be the date of the end of the age,
Mhm.
and the prophets would return to prophesy. One that I remember really clearly, and I was a pastor at the time, was 1975. Um,
Mhm.
and back in the 1960s, the Watchtower began to teach that Armageddon and actually, I think the end of human history would come in 1975,
Mhm.
and they were basing it. They were basing it on really sketchy uh, chronology because they had Adam and Eve. They said were created in the year 4026 BC,
Mhm.
and so there would be 6,000 years of human history, then 1,000 years of the millennium. So they had calculated that that the 7 year period from 1968, uh, there would be a 7 year period, and it would come in the fall of 1975, and that would be the apocalypse. That would be the Armageddon. That would be the return of Christ. Um, and so even up into October of 1975, the Watchtower was saying that the Creator's promise of a peaceful and secure new order before that generation that saw the events of 1914 passes away. Well, it ran out, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. I remember that Jehovah's this is back in 75. I remember the Jehovah's Witnesses all gathering in their kingdom halls in October of 1975. And they had a date and everything, and 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 it passed, and human history didn't end. So those are prophecies that have been made by the Watchtower.
And then
And
they change them when they don't
yes,
come. Like the 1914, they changed it to a later date. And then they said, okay, well, it was actually when that generation passes away. Okay, well, now it actually means that the generation who knew that generation. I was reading this on some of the Jehovah's sites. It's a generation theory, is redefining generation. But another one too I want to go into is they have a book called Salvation, and they had built this property in San Diego. They built this Beth Sarim house, which was supposed to be the house of the princes, so that there'd be. I'm going to read this from theirs. Tangible proof that there are those on earth today who fully believe God and Jesus Christ, and who believe the faithful men of old will be resurrected by the Lord back on earth and take charge of the visible affairs of earth. So they put in their document that the title to Beth Sarim is vested in the Watchtower and tract in trust to be used, for when these princes return. And now it's supposed to be a testimony to Jehovah's name, because the princes will eventually occupy that property. But they sold it. So what happened to their testimony?
Yeah, and what happened to their prophecy that this was all going to happen?
Yeah.
It went away.
Hmm.
It's like so many other things that um, it's like so many other things that they have prophesied. Um, so, like in 1995, they updated everything and said that the new world order would arrive before the 1914 generation passes away. But here's the thing: you and I uh, had parents who were of that generation, and they're gone.
They're
My
gone.
mom died at the age of 99,
Yes.
and she was born in 1920. So anyone that was coming in 1914, I mean, they would have to be 110 years old or 113 years old or whatever.
Mhm.
I doing
Yeah.
math in my head. Um, I mean, that generation has passed away, and so here's the deal: um, you can't make prophecies like this, and you're telling people you are speaking for God, that this is what God is saying. And the Jehovah's Witnesses seems to be really confused about timelines and when things are going to happen, and what we need to do about it.
Okay,
And
so let's go back to Jehovah. Actually, there's two things I want to go through in this. Number one, uh, we're going to get to Jehovah. Let's go to the witness part. Witness is, if you look at the definition of witness, it's someone who they actually saw something, actually experienced something. If you go to a court of law, they're going to say, did you actually personally see this? If you did not actually personally see this, then that's hearsay.
yes,
So, as you know, Christians use the term witness also. We are witnesses, but we use the term in regards, I don't go around talking about somebody else's life. We use the terms of what has God done in my life? What is my experience with God, with Jesus? Not what did somebody tell me to believe about Jesus, like the Watchtower.
yeah. Hey, that reminds me. I've got an interesting little um, bit here talking about. Um,
Hey, what's going on, family? So we're downtown Orlando, and I see some Jehovah's Witnesses posted up over there. We're just gonna go over there and interview them and see what they believe in. Hello, guys. We're just out here vlogging. What is this, guys?
Invitation of the most important day of the year we're offering to the public. It's a memorial of the death of Jesus Christ.
Is this Christianity? Is it something different? Or?
Yes, we consider ourselves to be Christians, and we have a nice page on our website that's for anybody in the news field to look at and answer a lot of questions when it comes to what our beliefs are. And
So you guys don't know the answers to the questions of the things you believe in. You guys pointed to a website and somebody else. I'll tell you this, though. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in the death, burial, and resurrection, and that he's the fullness of God bodily. That this is actually pointing people the wrong direction. It's a false gospel. I know the gospel. If anyone asks me, a Muslim, a Catholic, a Jehovah's Witness, I could be able to defend the gospel. So what I would say is, instead of pointing people to a website and in fear, not knowing if you're going to heaven or hell, or where people's souls go when they die, seek the scriptures, not by man and not by somebody who figured out the scriptures in 1970 something and figured out a new revelation. So I would highly recommend you guys would honestly repent.
Yeah.
the guy's a street preacher, so he's pretty rough. but he gets the point across, and that's the point that you were making about witnessing.
Right.
um, I'm a witness to what I have seen and heard in my own life and the transformation that has taken place in me because of the Lord Jesus Christ and his salvation.
And that's one of the things that I have been asked is, so, what made you decide to be a Christian? Well, first off, the work of the Holy Spirit in my heart. But
Yes.
the other thing, the big thing is, I know who I am without Jesus, and who I am with Jesus God has done such amazing things. I could tell story after story after story of things that God has done in my life. The Holy Spirit is alive and well, speaks and works in our lives. So our witness doesn't have to be based on something that happened 2,000 years ago alone. It is what is still happening today.
Yes. It's kind of like an old song we used to sing in church that had a refrain that said, "You ask me how I know he lives. He lives within my heart."
Mhm.
And that kind of defense of Christ from personal experience gets um, uh, looked at skeptically. But you know what? Personal experience is an evidence for the reality of God. It's not the only evidence, but it is one, and it's an important evidence. The change that happens in our lives through um, the scriptures and the Holy Spirit being active in us, and we growing in our faith.
And yeah, continually throughout. So I said we were going to get back to Jehovah because we
Yeah.
talked about witnesses. Now we've hit this every time. This is our third podcast on and last on Jehovah's Witness, and I just want to reiterate because, well, for example, the the New World Translation went back and put the word Jehovah in every time it says Lord in the New Testament. Actually, Jehovah isn't in the Bible. Yahweh is.
That's exactly right. Hang on a second. I've got something that we can look at here. Uh,
And the thing is, you pointed out that Jehovah was a word come up with by German theologians because they didn't have J and they didn't have W.
yeah, they swapped the W and the V sounds. Um,
with words they could pronounce.
yes, and so it became Jehovah. The here um, I've got the NIV,
Mhm.
the ESV. Excuse me, not the NIV. The ESV Bible, and if you look, the word Lord is highlighted here, and below is the Hebrew interlinear. If we look at the word Lord, it is the Tetragrammaton, YHWH.
Mhm.
So that is the name of God. And there's no Jehovah there. It is Yahweh. And so
And we
every
worship.
time it appears,
Mhm.
here's another time, Yahweh. Um, here's another time it appears, Yahweh. Every time it appears, it is Yahweh and not Jehovah.
Mhm. And those are things that, I mean, God will answer to Jehovah, but if you're going to say that's the only name he answers to, we're not even using the right name.
Right, right. It's kind
Um,
of.
Yeah, because he will answer to Abba. He will answer to um, he answers to many names like we do with our children and our grandchildren.
Yes.
So um, one of the, of course, there's some things that the Jehovah's Witness want to be super literal on, and others more figurative. So,
And
like
sometimes in the same passage.
that was the problem. There's some of these passages that some of these questions, I just looked at them and I went, well, they just said the opposite of what they said here, so there was no point in answering. They use, for example, in Revelation, the 144,000, and they're saying this is a literal translation of 144,000 people. But in that same passage, it says Jewish male virgins, but they say that's figurative. So are you interpreting this passage literally or figuratively?
Well, we're interpreting the passage there to fit our theology, our doctrine. And instead, we need to let the word of God uh, stand and
Mhm.
judge our theology. And the fact of the matter is, yeah, the 144,000 found in the book of Revelation were, uh, as you pointed out, identified as 144,000 Jewish male virgins. And you can't have it both ways in the same passage.
No. Um, the other question I have too is they call Jesus Michael. They said that Jesus was actually Michael,
Michael the archangel.
right? And in fact, they were celebrating his death in that video. And I wonder why they don't celebrate his resurrection and why he is still called Jesus instead of Michael now.
Yeah, those are good questions. They don't celebrate the resurrection because it wasn't physical. In their mind, in their teaching, the resurrection was spiritual, and of course, that doesn't answer all of the questions about the resurrection and whether it was physical or not. It was physical because the disciples in Jerusalem saw him. He
Mhm.
was seen by, and Paul reports this in First Corinthians. He was seen by 500 of the brethren at one time,
Yeah.
and so it was physical and not spiritual. They were seeing a physical Jesus. Now, his body was a transformed body, but still physical. And in fact, the marks of the crucifixion were still on him.
And he ate with them.
He ate with them.
Yes.
And so all of this tells us that it was a physical resurrection, not a spiritual one. And they were not seeing ghosts or seeing spirits because and that's one of the things when Thomas said, I have to see him and I want to check out the wounds in his hands and the marks of the crucifixion and the horrendous torture that Jesus underwent before the crucifixion. And sure enough, those it's actually called the stigmata. Those signs are there on the spiritual, physical body of Jesus, and he tells Thomas, "Hey, just put your hand in here. You can feel this." That that event tells us that it was physical, that Christ was there in a physical body that could be um, um,
Touched.
touched.
Yeah.
And John tells us again in First John, because he tells us that which was from the beginning, we have seen, we heard, we handled, we touched.
There's we've had a lot of questions about like enduring to the end. What does it mean about, is this person saved? Is this person saved? Is this person saved? There are some things. And another one was, did Adam know that he would burn in hell forever if he sinned? And I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't know the whole conversation, because God didn't feel it was any of our business. It's not up to us to judge.
Well, it's not up to us to determine final destinations, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and did Adam know all of this? I don't know whether he knew it or not, but what he did know is that the soul that sinned would surely die. And so he knew death was facing him. I don't think he had a full formed theology, an eschatology that had all of the elements in it, but he did have a command from God, and he broke it. And that's the,
And
that
God,
that's
God
the
covered him with a blood sacrifice.
and yes, in the slaughter, when God takes the animals and slaughters them and makes coats for um, Adam and Eve, um, people have seen in that the sacrifice and the shedding of blood for the covering of sins, and
Mhm.
certainly that idea continues throughout the Old Testament. And here's the interesting thing: not only in Christianity, but uh, 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 back in the '90s when I was a student at the University of Ghana, and I was studying African traditional religion, I found that in African traditional religion, they also slaughter animals, or usually sheep, and sprinkle the blood on offended parties, and it is a way of covering the offense that has happened and bringing peace back into the community. So this understanding, you find it throughout the world in traditional religions, an
Mhm.
understanding that there has to be a blood sacrifice to cover sin, or to cover an offense, or to cover something that is disrupting the peace and safety of the community. Um, so the blood of Christ has been applied to cover my sin, and enduring to the end. Um, I'm in. It's yes, those who endure to the end will be saved. The Bible says that. Um, but can you lose your salvation in a heartbeat? I don't think so. Um, and so uh, the Holy Spirit keeps working with us and drawing us along and empowering us to endure to the end. It's not just my efforts, but it is the Holy Spirit empowering me to endure to the end.
It's his mercy and his pursuit of us. God doesn't just say, give up the first time. It's like if you have a child and they keep getting into the cookie jar, you're going to keep reprimanding them, keep disciplining them. You're not going to kick them out in the street because they keep getting into the cookie jar.
Or when your child is learning to walk,
Hmm.
you're not going to, you don't punish them because they stumble.
No.
No, you pick them up and so you're always so thrilled and pleased when they start to take those first steps, and then you praise them for that, and they
Yeah.
continue to try to take steps, and they fall down, they get hurt, you pick them up, dust them off, and they continue. And I think that that's kind of a picture for me of my life. I've stumbled and fallen so many times, and
Yeah.
yet he picks me up, dusts me off, and says, "Come on, keep going at it, keep trying. Here's my Holy Spirit. He's going to help you with overcome that."
And that's a big part of our witness, of our testimony.
Mhm.
I know that we shared those on the New Year's Eve podcast.
Yes.
And, God keeps bringing us back. I had a point where I wasn't walking with God. And, that's one of those points in my life where I look back and grieve over my behavior at the time. But I remember there's one day, and I can tell you where I was. I was in my kitchen. It was one of those old kitchens that had the bright orange and yellow wallpaper flowers and green cabinets, And I was in my kitchen and I'm just going, God, I failed again. How have you not given up on me? I mean, I keep trying to do this and I can't get it right. And when God speaks to you, it's not usually an audible voice. He speaks in your heart and he says, I know, child, let me do it through you. He's not just saying, all right, go walk, get it right this time.
Right.
He's there holding our hand and picking us up and working with us.
And that is the progress that we're making in sanctification.
Yes.
We're sanctified and made holy through his blood. And that sanctification has been ongoing in my life for my entire life, my entire relationship with God, which started very early in my life. And that sanctification process is still going on. And because we don't know, specifically what Jesus will be like, but when he appears, we know we will be like him.
Mm-hmm.
And that process of sanctification is ongoing in my life to hopefully become more like him.
Yes. And unfortunately, we will never get it absolutely right on this earth, but we keep trying.
Amen.
So,
we do.
Yeah.
We also like to remind people to like and subscribe the podcast. That's always nice. One of those reminders, not the Holy Spirit, but a reminder nonetheless.
And, here's one of the things too with that we have looked at over and over again when we're talking about cults is follow the money.
Oh my.
Because yeah, I said that. A lot of times these organizations are about the money and, find out where the money goes. Is it going back into ministry? Where is that money going? Is somebody living really well? And for you and I, we're doing this podcast and neither one of us has any financial gain from this.
Not at all. In fact, it's all outgo.
Right. We've spent a pretty good amount of money keeping it going. And we spend a lot of time every week trying to research, trying to answer people's questions. You just can't answer them all. And so this is a pouring out, a ministry, not give me money, not any of this. We want to see souls saved, and that was another question that came up on the questions. Souls is a word that is often misused in English, but we want to see souls saved. We want to see people with us in heaven. Some of you that are asking these questions and are not currently saved, I hope that I see you in heaven. I know
Yes.
I'm going to be there.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the point of why we got into this whole podcasting thing, was to say we need to. Oh, I'm being joined by a friend here. We want to see uh, the maximal return, the maximal number of souls saved before Christ returns, and that's what we're active in,
Mhm.
is evangelizing and telling people about the truth of the gospel as revealed in the Word of God.
And we don't get any brown, I mean, I'm going to use the term brownie points. Our salvation is not more secure by the numbers that come to Christ.
Nor is it more secure by the hours that we record and put in. Um,
Exactly.
uh,
And the likes.
yeah, yeah.
um,
Uh, our salvation is secure in
right.
Him, and that's. Um, I would hate to be living in a religious system in which I endure to the end and then find out, yeah, I didn't make it.
Yeah. Yeah,
You weren't
exactly.
one. Wow.
I know. So salvation is through faith, not through works, um, by His grace.
Yes. By grace through faith.
Hmm.
That great scripture verse in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. You're saved by grace through faith, not of works, not of any work that you have done, but by his grace through your faith in him.
Because otherwise we would boast. We would say, look what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. We would be, we, we would have a place to brag and say, look at all the things I've accomplished. In my life and in my ministry, I've accomplished a lot of things, and
Mhm.
some of them actually pretty significant things. And I don't talk a lot about that, and I feel uncomfortable uh, when people are saying, you know, look, you accomplished this, you accomplished that. Um, yeah, why? I'm a sinner saved by grace. I'm a guy who followed a call that God put on his life, and things happened out of that, but they weren't because of me, they were because of him. And he used me in those things.
So I think that one of the things I want to really wrap up before we go, we've talked about God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit. We're not going to go totally back into that. They are who they are. They said that they all three have been declared as God by themselves, right? They are who they are,
Yes.
whether or not we believe it. And we don't really have to defend God. We don't even really have to defend the doctrine. The people that are angry, they're angry at God, which the very fact that they are expressing anger towards him shows that they know he's there. They're fighting against him. They're being convicted. And you know what? God's big enough to handle your anger. He's big enough to handle your questions. I keep going back to, are you big enough to handle his truth?
Yeah. God can handle your disappointments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that that we run into um, in talking with people and in just discussing things on the internet, is that sometimes people have been so severely disappointed by man,
Mm-hmm.
and especially with regard to religious experiences and cults and even toxic Christianity,
Right.
and they're so deeply disappointed. But God is big enough to handle your disappointment as well, and that's a major factor. Sometimes people are deconstructing their faith. They're losing their faith in God, and it has to do with a disappointment that starts them down that road. And I think I want to communicate that God is big enough to handle your disappointment when you bring it to Him.
Your hurts, your pain. He's big enough to handle all that. Um, we were laughing earlier because I'm drinking my tea and I'm using my Name of God cup. And one of the names of God is Jehovah Rapha, which Yahweh Rapha, I guess technically, but which is God who heals.
Yes.
And he wants to heal our hurts and our pain. And lest our Jehovah's Witness friends feel picked on, we're going to talk about things in Christianity too that we do that are wrong in later
Oh yeah.
segments.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, we're not only putting you under the microscope, we're going to use that same microscope on ourselves.
Yes, and especially on evangelical Christianity. I mean, there's stuff that we're going to talk about when we get there
Yeah.
that is gonna stir up a hornet's nest and probably get us um, questioned by our families.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could
So,
see it coming.
and yeah, but our goal is to provide truth, not our truth, but God's truth, and let him straighten out all the details, all the tangled mess that we've made of the beautiful gift he's given us.
Yeah, amen, amen. Well, this is about the end of it right here, and
Mm-hmm.
we want to thank you for sticking with us to the end of the podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important to us. It helps us get noticed by the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm. We're not playing to the algorithm, but we are recognizing that works to keep us in front of people. So thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm. God bless you all. And we'll see you next week when we examine Mormonism.
Yes, hopefully there will be a burning in the bosom.